All right, guys, those of you who are just dating, looking for a wife, looking for a relationship, I have some tips I'd like to give you from my point of view. Of course, you can do whatever you want. And one is to not be a people pleaser. And most of the people watching my channel have empathy, which is important. We need that for relationships. However, sometimes empathy goes too far. And I think for men who haven't grown up seeing masculinity modeled, especially I think men who are raised by single moms, they are too overly concerned with pleasing the woman, and they don't understand that women in relationships, in dating, the male-female interaction is not the same as it would be with neighbors, with friends, with a mom and son, with the dad and his daughter, with brother and sister. It's important for the man, if you want to have a polarity relationship and have a feminine woman attracted to you, that you have good boundaries and that you set the tone. And I'm going to give you a couple examples, and these came from my discussions with my personal trainer. And I actually like these. I actually agree with these. One is that if a woman likes you, say you're on a dating app, if she likes you, she's going to want to meet with you. She's not going to do a whole bunch of texting. And I was talking to someone recently who asked me how much texting do you do on a dating app? I'm like, none. I want to, if I matched up with you, I want to meet you, by the second message. I want you to ask me out, and apparently there are some women, or maybe it's more common in some areas of the country, where the women want to do a lot of messaging, and you would just be like, I'm not looking for a texting buddy. If they want to meet you, they will meet you. I would not put up with a lot of messaging. Then let's say you have a woman that says, well, I have trust issues. I need to message a lot before I get comfortable with someone. You can be like, I don't date women with trust issues. You gotta have some standards and some boundaries, guys, because when we hear from men who end up being steamrolled in their relationships, it's because they attracted controlling women. They never, you want to get rid of these controlling, entitled women, and don't waste time on women who are not into you. If a woman is into you, she's going to want to meet with you right away in a public place, okay? Women who come right to your house are not dating material. They don't have good standards or boundaries either, but she should be wanting to meet you. At the very least, get on a video call on the app. I personally do not give my number until I've met someone. I want to know if I like you before I'm going to do a bunch of texting or give you my number. Why would I text a guy that I haven't even met? I don't even know if I like him. I as a woman, do not want to invest time in texting a guy that I don't even know if I like him. So I think the only women who do that would be either just women that are just bored looking for attention, and it's not considered a respectful towards a man to just waste his time. Or maybe women who are so nervous about meeting someone that they need to do a bunch of texting. I don't know. I don't see a good reason for it. It's not a good way to communicate. The other one has to do with, sometimes a woman might go, well, I only go out with men who take me out to a nice dinner on the first date. And you can be like, well, I don't lead with my wallet. I do believe that's an entitled attitude. I think that a man should take a woman to dinner when he wants to take her to dinner, based on he likes her or he loves going to dinner, not to please her or to try to prove something. So, these entitled women, they're like, well, I need you to take me to a nice dinner. Well, are you going to fuck me after? What are you entitled to? I just don't like that. If you already know the woman, let's say it's someone that you've worked with or someone you know from school, you already know her and now you're asking her out. That's different if you want to do it. So just be very careful to distinguish between this is something I want to do and this is something that I feel I have to do or she'll leave me. You have to be willing to let people go. Now, that doesn't mean we don't compromise. Like in relationships, we definitely compromise, but you definitely have to realize where you're compromising. And I think you have to really, really stay in your boundaries and not just let yourself be led by the woman. A feminine woman is not going to pull you along like that. If you feel the need to lead with your wallet, I know men who've led with their wallet and they end up attracting very entitled women who don't even want to cook for them, ever pay for them. So you got to weed those women out right away. And some of them will be very hot. Some of these very gorgeous women are super entitled, and maybe you want to try that out, but I think that those will not a happy relationship make. Me, I have tried that. I have before gone through phases where I just want to meet you, we're going to go Dutch, because I do not want to feel obligated to you for anything. And I'm comfortable with that. I've also gone through phases where I was like, I want to know that you're not just down to fuck me. I want you to pay for a dinner, you know? But now I'm more to, I've tried different things myself. And now I'm down to, well, if I'm interested in this guy, I want to go on a date that's interesting and adventurous, but I want to know if I like him. If there's no money being spent, there's no sex happening, do we even like each other? Do we have something to talk about? So I think planning an interesting date for sure. It could be a hike, some cool place you found to hike, or something people don't always do, like it's winter now, if there's a skating rink open, or going to the zoo on zoo nights, or taking a walk on the beach or on a trail, a populated trail that you feel safe, or the riverfront, doing something unusual, something interesting and fun. I think a man has to bring interesting and fun, else I'm like, why would I need you if I got to come up with the activities? Like, you got to add to my life because you're bigger. Did you know that 99% of men could kill 99% of women with their bare hands? Like, you're stronger, you're bigger. You've got to add something, else you're just a dead weight. I've said this before, doesn't make me entitled. Like, you got to add something that is protective and adventurous and fun. But you do not need to lead with your wallet. You do not have to put up with a bunch of boring texting. Like, I'm not a texter either. If I like a guy, I'll text him, but only after I met him. Let's see, what's the other one? I don't lead with my wallet. I'm not looking for a texting buddy. I don't date women with trust issues. I don't know. I think those were the only ones I had. Just a second, I gotta think. Yeah, so above all, this is my opinion on like healthy masculine energy, is that you have to know what you want, and assuming that you're an empathetic person, which most of the people watching my channel are, they don't want to offend the woman, okay? So having a boundary is not going to offend anyone. It's just going to weed out the wrong people. And Dr. Robert Glover wrote a really good book on dating essentials for men. And in there he says you have to be a good ender. He talks about his first 2 wives. He's now on his 3rd wife, and he's very happy with her. I guess she's like a feisty Latina, and he seems very happy with her. He does say that with his first 2 wives, he should have never gone on a 3rd date. But he didn't know how to end it. He didn't know how to hurt, he was afraid of hurting someone's feelings. You have to be a good ender. And I think we have to be, a lot of people don't want to state a boundary. And I'll tell you why. Because we don't get practice in our lives practicing boundaries. We don't get any practice in that. The first time I learned about boundaries was when I went to a snuggle party, which are like cuddle parties to learn nonviolent communication. I was in my 50s. It was after my divorce. And we had to do, we were like in a group, and at the beginning of the group, each of us got up and said something that we wanted to experience during the snuggle party and something that we were a no to. And I thought that was a really good way to start a group session. And then they modeled for us how to say yes and how to say no. And it was done by practicing touch. So, for example, the demonstrators would get up, and it was Michael and his wife Kamala, and they were leading the group. They're a polyamorous couple. They were featured in the Showtime series Married and Dating. So I think it was called Married and Dating or something like that. It's a pretty good show. It came on in like 5 or 10 years ago. But say that he would ask for permission, say, to touch her shoulder, like so I'll just demonstrate. Like, let's say I'm Sharzad and this is Mike. Mike, can I touch your shoulder? And then Mike might say, he's going to feel whether he wants his shoulder touched, whether he wants it touched by me. And say he doesn't. Say his shoulder hurts, or he just doesn't like his shoulder touched. Maybe he just doesn't like brunettes. He's going to say no. And then I say, thank you for taking care of yourself. Wow, I didn't yell at him. I didn't put him down. I didn't go off and pout. I thanked him for taking care of himself because that's what he's doing. He's taking care of himself. Now, another way that Mike could have handled it is I like, hey, Mike, can I touch your shoulder? No, but you can touch my hand. And then we can negotiate like that. The only way that Mike would say yes if he's like, a hell yes, like all of me really wants it. So let's go through that. Mike, can I touch your shoulder? Yes. I'd love it. Okay, now with some people in the snuggle party, they have given themselves full consent for all touch. So, but this is an example, and it's how to learn nonviolent communication. And the important point is, if you're a maybe, you're a no. I want you to think about this when you're dealing with women, and they're saying, you got to message with me. I want to message with you all day long. I want to give you all my feelings. I want you to take me to nice dinners and buy me expensive things. And I want you to heal my trust issues. I want you to heal my daddy issues. You got to feel into your body to know whether you're a hell yes or you're a, I'm not really into this, then you're a no. And the reason people don't like to say no is because they're not used to being told, thank you for taking care of yourself. I mean, when we're kids, are we allowed to say no to our parents? Are we allowed to say no to the teachers at school? Are we allowed to say no at work? We don't have practice developing that skill set. Okay, like a few years ago, I had self-love meetup group through Meetup. I did it through meetup.com. I set up a meetup group, and I had a women's one and I had a men's one separately. And some of the women were even afraid to come over to my home alone. That's how skittish some women are. But they came, and I had them do a very simple exercise, which they all struggled to do. And the exercise was, I paired them up, and one woman would say, will you take me to lunch tomorrow? And the other woman had to say no. I told them what to say. I told them they had to say no. Or it was, will you lend me $100? Or can I drive your car? But let's do the lunch one. I want you to take me to lunch tomorrow. And the women, they didn't know each other. They didn't want to do it, and they weren't free for lunch, but they had a really hard time saying no. So a lot of people have a really hard time saying no. They automatically say yes because they know, they learned early in life, if I tell you no, you're going to yell at me or you're going to leave me. And this is the bottom line of what you have to be willing to tolerate. You have to be willing to tolerate that someone is going to get mad at you or someone's going to leave you. Okay, the number of people who are going to say thank you for taking care of yourself is going to be almost zero. Unless they've studied this also, it's going to be practically zero. They're not going to say thank you for taking care of yourself. They're going to be like, God, you're selfish, or every other guy takes me out, or this is just how it's done. They're going to try to gaslight you, diminish you, criticize you. They're not going to honor your boundary. And you don't have to give an explanation. The other thing we learned, you'd never have to give an explanation. All you have to do is say no. Yeah, or alternatively, you can say no. However, I would love to go to dinner with you next week and we can each pay for our own, you know. And a lot of people have trouble with boundaries. People who are used to pushing boundaries, who are entitled and who get their own way are going to have a really hard time with that. However, I think it's crucial in our friendships and in dating especially to give people boundaries, to give them a no and see how they respond. Are they going to pout? Are they going to belittle you? Are they going to respect your boundary and be grateful that you shared a boundary? Because when you share a boundary, it means that you're authentic. Because like they told us in the snuggle parties, if you never tell me no, I don't know that your yeses are real. I need to close the blind. One moment. That's very important. That's why in my private time that I have spent with men in the past, I would always make sure I would give them no's, because I had no's. Like, don't touch me here, don't touch me there. This is what I like, this is what I don't like. First of all, because I had rules, but also for that very simple concept that if I tell you no, then you know that my yeses are real. Some people don't really know that, but it's not like a hard and fast rule. But if I never tell you no, then you don't know that my yeses are real. So the thing about saying no to people is you got to practice it. You can even practice it by yourself. Imagine someone telling you, hey, can I borrow your car? And you say no, because this is something that you can also do if you're like nervous giving a speech or nervous giving a talk, or, you know, if you're a parent raising your kids, you know, have them go through a role play like with your kids. If someone is giving them drugs at a party, say they're in high school, to say no, because if you've already imagined the situation, it's easier to actually do it, believe it or not. Like if you're nervous giving a speech at work, imagine yourself standing up giving the speech. It'll make it easier to do it. And so imagine yourself starting to say no. And when I tell people no like that, I often have to brace myself for an impact, because deep down I know that they might just take off. I may never see them again. But a lot of times what happens in relationships with people that I already have, like with my brother and my sister, when I tell them no, they don't like it. And they ignore it. They ignore my boundaries. They don't like my boundaries. If you're giving no's to people you're already in a relationship with, they're going to get mad because they liked how things were. Or they might just choose they don't want to be friends with you anymore. Like my ex-husband decided he didn't want a divorce when I gave him some boundaries, because he liked things the way they were. Sometimes people like things the way they were. And so they may choose to not want to be your friend anymore. They may choose to not want to date you anymore. But that's important if you're a person committed to being like self-expressed and happy in yourself and authentic, that you share your boundaries, because there's nothing worse than being with someone who's pretending to like you. And when you do things for a woman and you're not a hell yes to it, it's manipulative. It's you're going to get passive aggressive and resentful, and it's not fair to her. Because if she's a woman who likes being taken to dinner and you don't want to lead with your wallet, she needs to find a guy who likes to lead with his wallet. Because women like that, I'm going to say controlling and like to use men, they need to find men who like being used. That'll be a much better fit for both of them for where they're at. But again, the problem is that people are afraid to say no. I know why I'm afraid to say no. Let me just take ownership here. Because I think I'm going to get yelled at like I'm a little kid. You know, mommy and daddy are going to yell at me for saying, no, I don't want to do that. You know, or they're going to be like, well, just mad at me and just give me the silent treatment. I think that's what my mom did sometimes when she was mad at me. She'd do like a 10-minute silent treatment, so I would know, oh my God. I stayed out all night at my boyfriend's again. Now I'm coming home and I'm going to get the silent treatment. You know, that's going to suck. Um, but we are adults now and we get to behave like adults. So, and when people tell you no, just thank them for giving you a boundary. That's good, because that way, you know, I think it's good to honor other people's boundaries. When I get a boundary from someone, a little part of me is like pouting, like, I don't like that boundary. But I'm an adult and I'm going to honor it. So the reason people have trouble with boundaries is because we don't have any practice at it, and because when we did tell people no in the past, we were punished. We were punished by being yelled at or by being abandoned, okay? And if you want to be in a healthy relationship, you got to face this, because the same thing that makes you afraid to say no, or the same thing that makes me, I'll use I statements. When I'm afraid to say no to someone I don't even know, how am I going to bring up a challenge in a relationship, a difficulty in a relationship? And my ex-husband and I didn't. We didn't. There were things we would never talk about or bring up because we just didn't have the courage, frankly. We have to be willing to bring things up. We have to be willing to say, I don't like this, I like that, this isn't okay with me, and be willing to have the other person be mad. And they're not always going to be mad. Sometimes they're going to be glad, like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said something because we needed to have this talk. That's the kind of courage we need to really have a strong relationship. And what better way to practice is in dating. And for people who feel like, oh my God, I finally got someone I like that I want to date, but I'm afraid to give a boundary, that's not going to go well. And, you know, like a feminine woman like me, I love it when a man gives me a boundary. I love when a guy gives me a boundary. I love it. It's such a turn on. To the right woman, your boundary is a turn on. If, you know, if a guy were to tell me I don't lead with my wallet, I'd be like, huh. This is a man who knows what he wants. This is a man I can trust because he knows what he wants. He's not groveling for my approval. It's a turn on to the right woman. So, you know, like Dr. Robert Glover says, the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy, you have to know when to say no. That's a very powerful part of dating. You have to know when to let people go. And when you become a man that's not a people pleaser, you're going to attract a much higher quality of woman. You're going to attract a woman who likes you to lead. And I think you'll be happier with yourself. Anyway, those are my tips. I would love to hear more about what you think about this topic of being a people pleaser and not letting women pull your chain. Like trying to manipulate you, trying to rob you of your money, and trying to make you heal her emotional wounds, and trying to like waste your day by messaging. Like, that's just low class behavior. It's very disrespectful of the woman. So, you know, I think that the right woman will be like, yeah, that's a good point. I guess, you know, she may just follow your lead. And if she doesn't, my opinion, it doesn't matter. Maybe some guys like a dominant, controlling woman. If you like a dominant, controlling woman, definitely be a people pleaser. But I will tell you, those men end up very miserable in their relationships. Very miserable. Very miserable. But maybe some people want relationships that are miserable. Thank you for watching my video.